So all my buddies over at Xmark wanted me to share my favorite chili recipe, and they wanted me to make sure I cooked it with fresh venison. In this case, just some elk burger, baby. Let's do it. Come on. All right, so here it is. I'm trespassing in my wife's kitchen. So if all of a sudden you hear me running and screaming, it's because my wife come home and found out that I'm in her domain. She don't go a lot of times to my man room and mess with my deer mounts. I don't mess with her kitchen. But here I am trespassing because I want to show y'all. Here it is, football season, right in the middle of the fall. We're all hunting, those of us that do hunt. And then there's a lot of people that might catch this that's never even ate any type of wild game. So when it comes to cooking, obviously it's very opinionated and everybody has their certain spices and different things they like. I just wanted to show you my favorite chili recipe. It's the simplest of all. It costs little or nothing. It's very cheap. This particular chili, we're gonna make it out of elk burger. It's elk I got in Utah. I had some ground up. And all we're gonna need is we're gonna need 3 cans of tomatoes. Now, showing that I am country as a chicken coop, here's some tomatoes my wife and I put up. That equals about a can. These are fresh tomatoes that we put up in can. But all you got to do, I always throw one of the cans of chili, I always do the Rotel with diced tomatoes and some green chilies in it. It just makes chili, it sets it off. That's my opinion. So in reality, all you got to do, if you don't have your homemade canned tomatoes, just get you 2 cans of diced tomato, any brand. It's good. I want that 3rd can to be with the Rotel because I like the green chilies. I love mushrooms, so I throw 2 small cans of mushrooms in my chili. And obviously, I am a guy who likes beans, but there's a lot of people who don't like beans. My wife's favorite chili she makes is called no bean chili. It's a little different. It's a little thicker, more Texas style. This is more of a stew type of recipe I'm using, but I only put 1 can of beans. I like the black beans. You can put any kind of beans, pinto beans, any kind of beans that you like, you can put in there, or chili beans, whatever you want to do. I personally like the black beans. Now, you can make your own chili seasoning, but dude, I found this chillo is the bomb. Something about the taste of this chillo. It's very simple, it's very good. I always put about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of ground meat, in this case, elk, and I always cut up 2 onions and I put it in there. Preferably, once you let it simmer, you want to let it set for a little while. And chili's kind of like soup or anything, gets better over time. But this is my favorite recipe, and I'll start browning the beef, and we'll show you how I'll make it. And I got one little more trick up my sleeve that always just sets this off. Anytime I brown, my venison, in this case, this elk burger, I also like deer meat. I also love moose meat, but it's obviously a lot cheaper. Well, I guess if you really added it up, it might be cheaper just to go buy ground beef. But in this case, there's a lot of pride because this is an elk I shot with my bow and arrow. But I'm also a big breakfast eater. My wife has chicken, so we have eggs and bacon most every morning. We're early risers. So in this case, I'm taking this black skillet and I fried my bacon up this morning. So there's a little bit of that bacon grease still left in there. You got it. I'm going to brown my elk burger in that little bit of bacon fat. It just... I mean, come on. I wish y'all could taste this. So what we're going to do, we'll just melt it on down. Sounds crazy. I like to brown it fast, but I want a little crisp in it. I don't like that spongy meat in my chili. I want a little crisp on the edges. So the only thing I do is when I put this elk meat in here is I want to cook it kind of fast and brown it, but I don't want to overcook it because one thing, it's a misconception. Everybody has a tendency to want to overcook. They usually want to overcook wild game because you think, oh, this in the wild, it's this and that. But in reality, wild game is better when it's a little bit rare to medium. Now, granted, another thing I'm doing, you notice I grabbed that with my bare hands. I did wash my hands. But when you in deer camp and elk camp, man, you a lot of times doing this over a fire. You're doing this in a lot of different ways. I'm a use my hand kind of guy, clean my hands, and 90% of the time, I'm using the same knife that I'm gutting deer with, so I don't want to freak people out to come eat with me, but bro, this is man food right here. This is man food. You know what? And since it's football season, I might not put all of this in my chili, but I'm gonna go ahead and brown up this second batch right here for a rainy day. For those people who have had elk meat and religiously eat it, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between elk and deer. To be honest, I like deer meat just as good, but I do think elk has a closer resemblance to beef than even deer. If you grow up eating a lot of venison, you know, and deer, then obviously you just love it. And I love deer meat. So 90% of the time, this recipe I'm using with deer, ground deer meat. But in this case, I got this elk. Really hearty, really good, really lean, and actually a lot better for you than your typical ground beef. However, we also got bacon fat in this, so I guess it's a push. But I'm kind of old school. What I mean by old school, like I remember watching my grandmama and watching my papa. Every time that they fried one thing, you know, they didn't throw one thing away. They used it for a second. They'd make red-eye gravy with a little bit of grease. They'd take a little flour and then make gravies and do things. They would save their bacon grease. That would be the shortening that they would fry in. So I'm kind of that way too. So it drives my wife crazy sometimes, but anytime I'm cooking, I usually got leftover skillets and stuff that I'm using for a rainy day. And so in this case, that little bit of bacon fat, it really does well. Now what I will do when I'm done frying this and getting it good and brown, I will still drain off any excess oil before I put it into my pot. Now one thing I do with any type of meat, I'm a seasoned guy, and even though this is gonna have a lot of flavor and you got the different chili mix, I always like to put a little season on my meat there. In this case, the Cajun two-step, man, I love stale cracker stuff, so we're just gonna put a little spice in there just to add a little bit of heat. And this ain't quite as hot as you would think. You would think this Cajun two-step would be super hot, but it's not. It's got an amazing taste to it. So we're just gonna put about like that in there just to add a little bit more spice to it. This is probably 2 pounds of ground right here. If you're somebody who likes your chili with a lot of meat, which I personally do, I like a lot of meat in my chili, so I a lot of times cook at least 1.5 pounds. But if you like a little more soupy and less chunky, you can obviously add more of what you like. But in this case, on a cold day, pile on this meat right here. So I'll probably put almost at least 3/4 of this in there. I might not put it all because this don't really need 2 pounds. But this same recipe that we're cooking here, all you got to do is keep doubling it. So how big a pot you got, you can make, and you can feed an army for literally little or nothing, man. Hardly no money in the ingredients here. Woo-wee! That sucker right there will bring a tear to your eye. I've been crying a lot this year. I ain't shot a lot of deer. I ain't even let an arrow go yet. So hopefully by the time you see this, I ain't pouting about a deer I ain't shot. I know y'all laughing. Y'all watch all these shows, man. I had a chance to meet old Emerald Glaze, such a nice guy. But they cutting their onions an art form. Look, deer camp, even though I'm in my wife's kitchen, we just trying to get it done because you got hungry folks coming in. I'm gonna throw some of these onions right here, right in my elk burger over here. Let them season down with that. You know what I think? We got the folks ain't never hunted, ain't never shot nothing. Y'all ready to go kill an elk or a deer. And we got the folks that eat a lot of deer and meat. They were already getting hungry because I know how it is, man. We hadn't ate no lunch today, so we ready to eat. And look at that. This shows you want to know how lean elk burger is? Look at this. Now you saw I had a good helping of bacon fat. It's absorbed all that. A lot of times, you know, when you're cooking down bacon, when you saw all the grease that comes in it, look at how lean this is. Now, a lot of people that's watching this that are healthy eaters, I'm not saying that you got to put any bacon fat or cook it down in bacon fat. But man, I'm about taste, man. When I'm watching football and I'm in a camp and it's cold and you're tired and you've been hunting, man, I ain't no dieter at that point. I'm ready to eat something good, hearty, and tasty. Typically, you're already gonna have bacon in camp. Usually you done had it for breakfast. Why not, man? Why not? That's what I'm saying. I ain't necessarily for always losing weight. Sometimes I think fat and slow is the way to go. In this case, we did take a very healthy meat and probably made it a little bit more unhealthy. But if you're on them Atkins or caveman diet, you already listen to this thinking, come on, Waddell, fat ain't gonna hurt you. Just stay away from the carbs. But a lot of times when I'm cooking chili, I'm also bringing some cornbread, Sometimes put it on a potato. A lot of times I'll make me a big old thing of white rice. Have y'all ever had chili and put it over white rice? I have. All right, check this out. This is after I browned it. Check that out though. Look how that elk meat just absorbed all those flavors. I've not even drained this. This gives you an idea of what kind of healthy meat this is. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put about, I don't know, I might just go ahead and put it all. We'll just make some really meaty chili. So this is about, I'd say close to 2 pounds of meat right here. And we're gonna put this right over into our soup pot. All right, look at here. That sucker ain't bugling no more. Look at that. How about that, son? Clean up this mess as I go, because any given time my wife's gonna get home, and we did not let her know we was gonna be cooking in her kitchen. So X-Mark, I'm gonna blame it on you. So I'm gonna show you just how simple this is. And if you're a big tomato lover, you can put as much as you want, beans or chili. We're just gonna pour that can of Rotel in there, just like that. Look at here, some seasoned up fresh tomatoes, homegrown. Boy, that's a good job, look at that. Good, look at that. We're gonna put that full can in there. These we put up 2 years ago. Canning is actually a pretty fun hobby too. And I always grow a bunch of tomatoes, so I always try to put up a few every year. Man, I wish you could smell that. It's already got, it almost smells like chili. I can't have too much mushrooms. So I just usually, because everybody don't like mushrooms, if it's just for me, I'll put 2 big cans in there. In this case, I'm gonna put 2 small because not everybody loves mushrooms. And I don't drain them, I just put the water that's in there too. And this is 1 can of black beans. So in this case, not everybody puts black beans in their chilies, but I do. We'll turn that on. I usually like to get it hot fast and then let it simmer. We're gonna mix all that in good. And look at that, oh my goodness. And then we're gonna finish it off and put our chilo in there. So simple, so delicious. If you wanna add a little water to make it more soupy, to me, I like a chili with a good thick consistency. I like beef stew. I like hearty chili. You know, you go to Texas, you know, see a lot of times the Texas chili is really thick. I like mine kind of soupy, but still it's decently thick. If you want to, and I've heard of people do it, I think you can throw a little flour in there. It'll thicken it up a little bit. You have to cook a little hotter there. And then all we're gonna do from there, just chilo mix. You can buy this anywhere. Now, there is some good recipes you can go online if you wanna make your own chili mix. Just with typically what's in your spice rack, you can make mix, but for this size of pot, this is the perfect, I mean absolute perfect amount of seasoning for this pot of chili. Because you will find some chili snobs. I was at Dixie Deer Classic and I actually judged a chili cook-off. And let me tell you, there's all kind of ways you can make chili. This is just the way that I've always found is the quickest, the cheapest, and easiest at deer camp, and even for just a good football Saturday or Sunday. Now, normally after I get it stirred up real good, I'll put a lid on this and let it simmer, or even better, put it in a crock pot. A lot of times I'll let that just slow simmer, be on a good warm, and just let it rock and roll all day. In this case, we're gonna eat it pretty quick because myself who's cooking, the man behind the camera and the man behind the other camera, none of us eating anything. So you know what we're gonna do? We're probably gonna get some soda crackers. I'm gonna make some rice and we're gonna eat this right now because we're hungry. We're really hungry. So here's what we're gonna do to finish it. Literally just some store-bought rice in a bag. I did a little bit of brown rice and a little bit of jasmine, which is white rice. And I'm gonna just scoop it up and put it and let this be my cornbread. Because here's the deal, I like cornbread the best, but I'm thinking if you're in the middle of elk camp, you're in the middle of a man camp and you might not have a great oven, you might have a microwave or you can boil some water, and rice makes a good starch. I like something, some soda crackers or something. So in this case, little rice and chili, a little brown rice, a little white rice. It's this simple. You just pour it right there over it. And this chili has only been cooking maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It basically is done. Once that seasoning melts, it's ready to go. The longer it simmers, the better it is. So look at that right there. How does that, now think about a good cold December day. You've been chasing ducks. You've been chasing deer. Maybe you've been watching football. Maybe you just laying on the couch and watching it snow outside. Does that not make you want to shoot an elk? For literally about $7.57, we are feeding an army. Actually, let's call it $15.37. Either way, under 20 bucks, eating like a king. I'm serious, I know you can't taste it, but guys, come on. Come on. I got 3 more bowls. I'm gonna feed these guys behind the cameras. So here it is, guys and ladies. See that little rice coming through? Look at there. So guys, if you are going to be in your woman's kitchen, you might as well cook something manly. That's why I wanted to share this. Thank you, Exmark, for bringing this on. And by the way, men, if you're going to be manly, you better have a good lawnmower and keep your wife's grass cut. So thank you, Exmark, for providing us with some good lawnmowers and requesting we do this video. If you like this sort of thing, go to exmark/backyard.com and check things out. Or exmark.com/backyard. Try them both. One of them is going to get you where we need to be. Or just Google Exmark Backyards and check out all the videos. There's a lot of ways to get there. All I know is we're about to eat this. It's closer to supper than it is to lunch, and we have not eaten anything. So we're about to eat this deer chili or elk chili right now. Thank y'all for watching.